Alright, 13 love, 13 knowledge, 13 wisdom, 13 respect. We are live, hopefully. So I'm going to let it just record and well, check on it later. I figured I'd go live. I haven't went live in a while. Check the internet, see if the speed is good enough to be able to actually do this. But basically, we're just going to kind of look at some of the Mesopotamian deities and go from there, because I feel that that is kind of a good starting point for doing research on ETs, right? Because I don't know why people don't really do any research on more of the deities in different cultures. I know why a lot of select religions will kind of stay away from this stuff, because they feel that they are worshipped, right? But we have to look past that stuff, right? And just look at the culture and the history of these deities, because they're just, got to think that they're kind of like us, but not really. They obviously had a lot more technology and uniqueness in their culture and in this time frame of existence, because it's very, very fascinating. And just looking at this picture here alone, it sets the stage for some interesting explorations, right? I mean, just looking at their eyes alone goes back into the Greys, right? With the big eyes. I mean, if you just look at just that alone, you got to kind of question what were these beings, right? There's a lot of theories I have, and some interesting stories that go around. It's hard to say what's real and what's not real, and that's where we have to start breaking down all of these things, not going by perceived translations, but actually just exploring what our ancient ancestors left behind. Just like these engravements in stone, right? That's stuff that we got to start looking at and just exploring the details of it. Like, I mean, this lady here is Ishtar, and she has evolved over time. Which one's the first? I feel that this is the first, just because of their unique nature of things. She does have a human-like hand there, but her facial features are definitely, there's something different going on, especially with the two faces, right? And there's a lot of other things you can look at here, whether it is meaning of the stars, where they come from, or if it's just a story of some kind. Looking at this guy here, down here with, they would say it could be a knife, it could be something else, but to me it's kind of like this person's trying to get into the higher realms to where these guys are. And they're portrayed with wings, which makes it interesting, because were they really wings, or were they part of their garment? For me personally, I feel that they had wings. And looking at the animals here as well is also very interesting, because what's the symbolism behind it? Could they transform? Were they anamorphic, right, in nature? And that just means that they could transform. And it's talked about a lot in the Bible. The nymphs are talked about a lot in the Bible, and that's definitely something I want to share, but I'd rather share it in a book format. So just trying to figure out how to put that all together. Um, and then there's this animal down here with a unicorn, so that's definitely a sign that unicorns were a thing back then. So there's just a lot of things to study with these. And just studying it, not just looking at the names as a whole, because a lot of times you get lost in the story and just don't really pay attention to what you see in front of your eyes. Just like you. I mean, whoever is watching this or comes on here, um, this allows you to uh, just really be observant of things. And studying Hindu deities, that's an interesting one as well, especially with the blue beings, because those blue beings go uh, into Orion, or some way, shape, or form in that element as well. So we'll explore that later. But stick with the Mesopotamian ones. Um, a lot of these deities are mentioned in the Bible from the very beginning, um, as well as the symbolism of their star constellation. I don't know what star constellation this is, but definitely uh, needs to be explored in some further research. But that's definitely the star constellation. And my theory is that these beings came from Mars, kind of like Noah's Ark. And I would not be too surprised if that is the case. That these were the first beings that came here, but not the first living entities that live down here. It gets to be rather interesting. But exploring the names as a whole is definitely brings up some interesting things as well, because it talks about the supreme gods and then the different job titles that these beings have. And an interesting thing looking at this is, like the word Enlil and Inki, that goes back into the Elohim, or the Els. So these are the Els. Kai is talked about a lot in the Bible. If you do root word on Kai, and Lilith, is an interesting one. The Ins, or the Ingis, they're fire beings. There's just a lot of interesting things. Marduk is an interesting one, but I feel the picture doesn't interpret what that is. But with this is an interesting drawing as well, because you get all these wheels within wheels. Doesn't that sound familiar? So we got all these wheels within wheels, which could either be the symbolism of the planet or the symbolism of the Merkaba, right? Which is a light vehicle, which is also talked about in the Bible. I don't know if it was shown in here. Don't believe so. But this is a great program that just really allows you to study root words a lot better. Just like here, it says the Elohim, so God, the word God translated, and then on here it says gods in the ordinary sense, but specifically used plural. So in the beginning there was the gods, or there was the Els, right? And so in the beginning there was the Els, who created different dimensions, perhaps. So this word right here, Shemesh, or Shemay, is linked with this image. Let's see, I think I have it pulled up. but it's also a 2 as well. So however you want to look at it, but it's linked with this guy with the interesting symbolisms there. And then you got some interesting creatures, hooved creatures, that goes into the character of Pan, the half human, half beast creatures, which is interesting as well. So that means that this world was filled with beast creatures, the beasts that roamed around the earth, which is very interesting as well. But I think I might have the full picture. I know I have it saved. I might pull it up real quick because it really shows some interesting things. Let me see. Yeah, I plan to hopefully start going live earlier because I know it's pretty late in other areas of the world. But let me see here. There's a lot of cool things that you'll discover as you put things together. I know it's around here somewhere. Where did it go? Oh, there we go. Yeah, so this one here, this one's always caught my attention as soon as it loads here. But this to me is a very interesting one. Let me see if it... Yeah, so this is the full picture here. And I believe you can... Yeah. So you can make this thing as big as you can. Explore into it, but you got your big guy here, supposedly Shemesh, or a 2. He would be the leader. And this is what you really have to pay attention to, is the height of these. So these beings are probably like 18 feet tall or even taller, depending on how big these guys are. And there's a lot of secret symbolisms behind all this. Just doing research, how their hands are positioned, whatever this is, whether it's a technology or their home planet. Doing some research, could be linked with Saturn, could be linked with Mars. It's hard to say. Could even be connected with a spirit or the sun. It's hard to say. But to me, this is kind of like the story of the 3 Magi's or the 3 magicians, asking or judging if they want to ascend up or ascend down. And if you look at these images, there's always layers to these things. So there's a bottom layer that has different deities, and there's just each layer. But again, it gets interesting because again we have these hooved creatures, that is underneath this deity right here. And just look at those big eyes, man. It just blows my mind how that looks. Same with the turban style hats and everything. But it's very, very fascinating. It's stuff you definitely want to research. You know, what is this tool here? What does this do? Does this control this? Then the symbolisms here. In our modern mind, we think this is the moon and then whatever these 2 things are, but it's not really the case. Could even be signs of the black moon, or the black sun. That's coming up in April, the black sun. So they always say it's the moon or the moon's shadow that's passing by, but it's really a black sun that hovers. Whether it is the underworld sun, I don't know, but it's definitely very, very interesting as well. But it looks like people can see this. I got 2 views, so woohoo! At least the live works, so that's very good. Means my wife got a very good router. Let's go back to some of these other guys over here. But this is stuff we just got to just start looking at and really linking it together with maybe the religion or the spiritual practices that we go through daily. And it's not that we worship these guys, but we got to realize that these are ancient ancestors. Our genes or genetics are attached to these beings. We're linked in some way, shape, or form. And it's not that we worship these deities, but we study them. See, just like this one here. This one's interesting because this goes back to the first image we looked at. This is the very same setup as Shemesh or Atu, right? So that would be it. These could be the beings that were first, and then they just transformed. So like this image here. Like I said, I feel that that's what these beings look like first, and then they it's kind of transformed into a more modern human look, right? But the eyes are still bug-eyed. But yeah, but this is an interesting one as well. I mean, it's the same concept, but these are females this time, so that is very interesting. And then, like I said, modern times people think this is the moon, but it could be something else, right? And then looking at the symbolisms here is very, very foreign. That's for sure. It's very, very interesting. But they still have a human look to them. And it's very interesting. All this stuff is like, it just blows my mind no matter how many times I look at this stuff. It's just interesting that people don't realize that these are ETs in some way, shape, or form, right? And it's just taking time to do some research on them. And like I say, just gonna have to just look past the names and just observe what this stuff is, because a lot of times they just guess just because they wear the same hats, things like that, does not make them the same deity. They just looked alike because they were part of the same family, because back in the day you just created. But now since we have so much mixed DNA, you have to continue to mix things. Again, we got the 3 again, and this guy sent down. So it's always a some kind of initiation or an honoring of the chief, and then you always got the groups of 3, just like the Trinity, or the 2 witnesses, right? You're going to have the one person, then the 2 witnesses, just like in a court case, right? It's just modernizing this stuff to not let it be religious or, in a way, worshiping these guys. Because, I don't know how in the world humans decided to worship, but it's because of the enslavement thing as well. But this is an interesting picture too. I definitely need to save this one and look at it more. But you got the 3-headed dogs here, and then you got the symbolism of Scorpion, which tells you the star constellation. And then you got the giant with red hair. That's key right there. Goes back into Jacob and Esau and the red-headed giants, right? And then you got the littler people as well. So there's a lot of symbolisms here. This was an interesting one. I'd never seen this one before until I started looking at this stuff. But definitely signs of the red-headed people, and it talks about the underworld. And man, I've been doing some deep studying on the underworld and just linking it back to the Bible, and just researching what the root word for earth is. Just what is that? Because a lot of these ancient stories may not be talking about here, right? These ancient stories could have came from Mars, could have came from somewhere else, right? And we just have these stories of creation, but it's been mistranslated in a way that it doesn't make any sense. It turns into a religion instead of actually just reading it and studying it and just going, oh, hey, there's history here about life, where we came from, and linking it to different possibilities, right? But at the end of the day, what's happening now is the most important thing, right? It's good to learn about the past, and when you learn about the past and you've seen how your ancient ancestors, then it goes to your grandma and granddads, and then your parents, see how that story has twisted and turned itself, you don't really know the real answer. So it comes down to, do you want to believe in something? Do you want to have a doctrine rule over you? Or do you want to dig deeper into it and see, or find out the origin of you, right? Origin of you is huge, right? If we're looking for any origin, it should be about you. The importance of you and you being down here. Because you're experiencing reality, right? There's a lot of responsibilities that go into life as a whole. So it's always important to look at the different levels. This one's an interesting one too. This goes back into the underworld, and these little guys are called the little people. So if you go back into or look into native culture, basically around Wyoming, Montana, there's a lot of stories about the little people, and right around where I live at, we have little people that hang out. A whole bunch of signs are all over the mountains of their presence there, and there's so many stories about it. So much, in fact, I would love to explore it, but it's definitely, it's scary because the stories that the tribes will tell you, that they're tricksters. They will use the power of illusions. They can even transport you as well. So it's just respecting their territory and just leaving them alone. For all I know, they could be protectors. They could be protecting spacecraft. Who knows? But yeah, these would be the little people, and they look very much like this, except they got some really. They have fang teeth and stuff. They're very strong, even though they're small. But yeah, then you got this one as well. And again, like I said, it goes back into different incarnations of Inanna or Ishtar. Some people say it could be Lilith. It's hard to say, just because of the symbolism of the owls. And this is where you have to really break down and just study this stuff, because the powers that be, right? Their religion is based on Aleister Crowley, and that is knowledge that you can find out real easy. But the religion of the elite, the majority of the presidents, whatever, right? There's proof of that. I forget what it's called, some grove, but they have the picture of the owl. But you got to remember that it's Aleister Crowley's religion that they continue to follow. So it doesn't mean that it's part of history, but it's Aleister Crowley's religion. So just remember that. A lot of people get twisted and people just don't understand what's going on because they flipped everything upside down. Aleister Crowley flipped everything. So the ancient ancestors' history, whether it was dark or not dark, right, is all twisted. So now we have to just backtrack and just start studying this stuff for ourselves, right? Because again, that's the same tool that Shemesh or Utu had. But it's interesting because she has part animal. This goes back to the picture of Shemesh with the hooved or the pan creatures underneath. And I do feel that it was part of this reality, is that this world was once head beast creatures, and then they either transformed or things just changed. But she has wings as well. And this is also a perfect example of symbolisms. This later on goes into Egypt, and was it I think was Akur? Yeah, Akur. Let me put this in here. I think it was Akur. So hard to remember all these. See if I'm right on this. But it was two lion deities that protected the Stargate. Yep, Akur. So this goes back into this with the two lions protecting whatever this is. Modern times they call it the sun, but this is a lot more than just the sun. It could be a portal, a Stargate, I don't know. But it's symbolisms like this you got to pay attention to and link it back to the ancient symbolisms. It's the very same thing. It's just so weird, man. But I'm glad the live is working, so that's good. So hopefully I'll be able to start doing these more often, so then it gives whoever's watching the opportunity to have any questions, or we can explore things together. Because we're getting into a time now where it seems now if you go live you get more recognized now than making videos, which is quite interesting. But again, we have this one here. Scorpions seem to be a lot in Mesopotamia as the scorpions. Judas Kiss. It's very interesting. Just trying to link it all together is the fun part about research, right? But I think I am probably going to go ahead and call it, since this is working, so that is amazing. But yeah, we'll just keep exploring this stuff. If you got any questions, or if you want to just switch the subject to something else, we can definitely keep that open as well. Because this is the stuff we got to study. And there's a lot of other rabbit holes you can go down. But I feel this is a perfect place to start. And then also going into, clicked on the wrong thing. There we go. And also going into the Hindu deities, which seems to be one of the first kind of spiritual practices of things, I guess. So linking back to Mesopotamian, but with Hindus, they seem to incorporate spiritual practices, right? Meditation and exploration of the spirit, being in contact with deities, just like religion, talking with angels, talking with Christ, talking with God. It's narrowing it down universally, so then we can kind of just really get to the basics of things, because people's running around all over the place trying to find the right religion, and is this the right religion? Is this the right God? Is this the right deity? Is that the right deity? Am I talking to angels? Am I talking to demons? You know, throw all that away and narrow it down to the basics of things, right? Which comes down to you again, right? The importance and uniqueness that you bring to the world is huge, right? That's kind of what I want to talk about was, chosen ones, star seeds, things like that. What does that mean? And how can we simplify that meaning as well? So I could talk forever. I need to go to bed. So thank you for joining, who joined in. Love yourself. Keep shining bright. We'll continue to explore this stuff as much as possible. It's going to be a lot nicer outside. I'll be outside and start doing techniques that I practice. And it's good to be outside doing these techniques, because it really allows you to become one with nature, and just listen, right? Listen, observe, because getting out of the house, there's a lot of frequencies in the house that really disrupt your spiritual experience as well. So anyways, love yourself, keep shining bright. I'll talk to you later.